Shalom, Mishpach, Baruch Haba, Korim Lee Anthony. Hello, fam. Welcome. They call me Anthony. Thank you so much for joining us here at Sarid. As always, I like to begin by giving all praise, honor, and esteem to Yahuwah Elohim, who is worthy of great praise and respect, and to his Ben Adonai Yahushua HaMashiach, to whom all power and authority has been given for these prophetic times that we live in. We not only praise Yahuwah for his word, but also for the supernatural way it performs when his two witnesses are aligned. For precept must be upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, line upon line, here a little, there a little. Therein, Yahuwah speaks to us in a very unique way, which you have witnessed here at Sarid through the Yadu. He has allowed us to reveal a unique teaching that unleashes knowledge and understanding in his word that is truly awe-inspiring and marvelous, highlighting prophetic truth that is not found in this world order, and we praise Yahuwah Elohim for keeping his promises. Well, beloved, I have come to inform those of you who have followed our witness through the years of the prophetic warning that was given in the last video release here at Sarid, being released on the last great day of Sukkot 2023. Even as the events transpired at that time in the land of Israel was being carried out by terrorists. It was no coincidence that the video and the attack are related because of the prophetic nature of the word of Yahuwah Elohim to make manifest what is spoken when he confirms his word through those sent by him. The judgment captivated the world in dramatic fashion on October the 7th, 2023, and still making headlines 7 months later. Video 92 was called The Festival of Sukkot Part 2, and in the video, a judgment was handed down because of some disrespect done to the elders of Israel in the survey lines. The survey lines are here on the screen, and it was spoken in the survey line that Yahuwah always sends the elders from among the people to warn them right before a judgment is handed down concerning Bnei Yisrael. Therefore, I came, and I have come now so that you can prepare yourself for the times to come. And the judgment that played out came in the form of a terrorist group called Hamas. Some disrespect was revealed in the verses along the survey lines of the footnotes performed by false religions. Christianity, at first, here on the screen, because they tampered with the word of Yahuwah Elohim, and judgment fell on them right there in the written account during the survey because they disrespected the elders by removing them in the written word. At that time, it was exposed to you, their offspring, Islam, broke off some physical disrespect. Theirs playing out the same day of the video release, creating a war that continues to this day. And as a result of their disrespect, the words of Adonai Yahushua rang out to us loud and clear when he spoke in Matityahu and Lucas concerning the days of Noah and his coming. It rang out when the group called Hamas rose up to stir up violence, exposing itself in the heart of those who seek to destroy Israel. Therefore, the next few weeks of teaching here at Sarid will be different from what you have become accustomed to, a gleaning, in order to help you understand why the two witnesses used on October 7th, 2023 had to be revealed and why it is so important. especially for those of us who have taken an oath to follow that covenant and the Aron which Yahuwah has given us. Okay, a profound connection between the events that occurred on October 7th and the covenant of Yahuwah. Okay, which raises the question, what does that mean for those immersed into that covenant today and following Adonai Yahushua? Okay, we're going to talk about that, and all those things happened for judgment according to the covenant established by Yahuwah. And it was done to see who is following Yahuwah and who is not. Because there is no other covenant written in the scripture. Neither is there a new one. The old one is simply renewed for those returning to the ancient paths for guidance and instruction. So let's take a look at it to help those of you who may not have understood see more clearly something you may have rejected because of false teachers. Okay, just going to briefly go over it in summary. The covenant is found in the book of Shemot. We know it's Exodus, beginning in chapter 20 and ending in chapter 24, verse 8. It is something to be highlighted and read in your worship to Yahuwah Elohim. We know this because Yahuwah Elohim gave instructions for a mitzbeach in chapter 20, a place where sacrifices of worship were performed, where oaths and dedications were taken and received in the presence of Elohim. Most people end the covenant right there, okay, which is a big mistake. Because in the very next chapter, in verse 1, Yahuwah Elohim establishes judgments to be set before the people as part of that covenant. Judgments, things that come up to see who's going to follow the covenant and who is not. See who loves Yahuwah and who does not. To see who loves his neighbor and who does not. Adonai Yahushua references this section when he spoke, saying, love one another, and not just anybody. He's talking about love those who are following the covenant, one another. And you will know who is following the covenant because they will read it as an act of worship. For Yahuwah has spoken to Moshe, saying, I will certainly be with you, and this shall be a sign to you that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Mitzrayim, you will serve Elohim on this mountain. It happens to be the same mountain where all of this is going down regarding the covenant, where a multitude of people were gathered. Some were friends and some were enemies toward one another for whatever reason. It was a long journey through the wilderness. The point is, they all followed the same covenant. They could be enemies because of a prejudice or jealousy, some type of jealousy, whatever. To people with those types of attitudes, Yahushua clarified his position on these judgments and the judgments when he said in the covenant, love your enemies. And not just anybody. Because there are a group of people listed in this covenant that are going to be destroyed. You will find them listed in chapter 23 of Exodus, chapter 23, verse 23. It is a continuation of this covenant. Those are some people who are going to be cut off. They are best identified as other religions. People who are influenced by something other than Yahuwah Elohim, who is the author of this covenant. And any of today's religions or religions past will all characteristically fall into one of the categories listed there in verse 23. We are not commanded to love those people because of spiritual differences. You can show respect, but not love. Do what you want. Word says not to do it. Do not become unequally yoked together with non-believers. Comes to mind here. What partnership has righteousness and lawlessness? And what fellowship has light with darkness? And what agreement has Mashiach with Belial? Or what part as a believer with an unbeliever? And what union has the Mishkan of Elohim with idols? For we are a Mishkan of the living Elohim. As Yahuwah has said, I shall dwell in them and walk among them, and I shall be their Elohim, and they shall be my people. So you cannot serve two masters. So those people in that verse are spiritual enemies. As I mentioned, the covenant ends in Shemot 24:8, verse 8, where the blood of an animal is used to confirm all the words of the covenant. Adonai Yahushua renews this covenant with his own blood as a more excellent sacrifice. And we see this in several places, most notably in Hebrews chapter 9, verse 11 through 15. If you have your scriptures, you can turn there. I'm going to take a quick look at that as it speaks specifically to what we're talking about here regarding the animal sacrifices. In verse 11, it says, but Mashiach came as Kohen Hagadol of the good things to come, with the greater and more perfect tent, not made with hands, that is not of this creation. Now I'm reading out of the New King James Version with some things restored. Okay? Verse 12. Not with the blood of goats and calves, but with his own blood he entered the Kodesh Mikdash once for all, having obtained everlasting redemption. For if the blood of bulls and goats and the ashes of a heifer sprinkling the unclean makes kadosh for the purifying of the flesh, how much more shall the blood of Mashiach, who through the everlasting Ruach offered himself without spot to Yahuwah, cleanse your conscience from dead works to serve the living Elohim. And for this reason, he is the mediator of the renewed covenant by means of death, for the redemption of the transgressions under the first covenant, that those who are called may receive the promise of the everlasting inheritance. Those who are called, they're still in the grave, waiting until this thing that Yahushua has to accomplish. So the words of the covenant are renewed, but animals are no longer needed. Because whenever a new believer was recognized in times past, they had to do it with the blood of an animal to confirm all the words. Yahushua gives us symbolisms now, using the bread and wine as his body and his blood, saying this cup is the renewed covenant in my blood that was shed for you. Okay, a sacrifice. This now is used to confirm all the words of the covenant. We know there is no detailed covenant written outside of the first one given on the mountain, so it's obvious that they use the only one available. The renewed covenant writings, known as the New Testament by Christians, was not yet written to use any of those writings. Yahuwah has done a new thing with the old covenant. Everlasting life now comes through Yahushua. So verse 15 of chapter 9 in Hebrews declares for the redemption of the transgressions under the first covenant. These people have died and gone on. They're waiting that those who are called may receive the promise of the everlasting inheritance. Okay, we look back in verse 9, they used animal bloods in the first covenant. Called first in the verse because of the animal's blood that was used. Yet, we notice they didn't make it through. They're still waiting, according to verse 15, not until Yahushua came to redeem them. It says so right in the verse. Stands to reason, if we want to get where they are in the everlasting inheritance, we need to keep that covenant, recognizing Yahushua as the mediator. Okay? Call or email me if you have questions. Now let's get to the reason I have come regarding the judgment that was handed down in the video given on Sukkot as it relates to Hamas in the covenant of Yahuwah Elohim. This word is found towards the end of the covenant in chapter 23, verses 1 and 2 as a judgment. Okay? End times, end of covenant. Where it reads, "You shall not circulate a false report. Do not put your hand with the wicked to be an unrighteous witness. You shall not follow a crowd to do evil, nor shall you testify in a dispute, so as to turn aside after many to pervert justice." Okay, this word for wicked, H7563 in chapter 1 or verse 1. Verse 1, 875:63, Rasha is a wicked criminal, being guilty of sin against Elohim or man. This encompasses a violation of the covenant in the worst way and should raise red flags everywhere because the verb is condemning as guilty in ethical or religious relations. So these are some people who have a problem with Elohim. Religious relations. They want to get rid of Yisrael. In fact, to act wickedly in ethics and religion. Elohim is saying, do not associate with these people at all, especially when they have a problem with him. Get out of the way so that their judgment does not involve you. Because if you pity or support them at all, you have taken a stand against this covenant of Yahuwah Elohim. And you too will be dealt with. Yisrael means Elohim prevails. You're not going to get rid of him. Yisrael is his religion. He goes on to identify who these people are by name and deed. And we find this in the same verse. Do not put your hand with the wicked to be an unrighteous witness. This word for unrighteous is Hamas. You shall not circulate a false report. Do not put your hand with the wicked to be an Hamas witness. Okay, H2555 means violence, wrong, cruelty, and injustice. The verb pronounced the same way means to do all of those things. To treat violently, to do wrongly, to do wrong physically and ethically. Okay, which is exactly what they did. Hamas is an acronym of its official name dealing with Islam. Hamas is a Palestinian Sunni Islamist political and military movement governing the Israeli-occupied Gaza Strip since 2007. A terrorist group that is extremely militant. The group is committed to armed resistance against Yisrael and the creation of an Islamic Palestinian state in Yisrael's place. Okay. Hamas was founded in 1987. The word of Yahuwah became flesh at that time and dwelt among us, rising up right in time for this judgment that Yahuwah Elohim has allowed us to show you, the beloved, because he knew we would come with the two witnesses needed to verify this event. Okay, they're trying to get rid of Yisrael, much like they're trying to get rid of him in these survey lines right here on the screen at the bottom. They want to omit him. Okay, they want him out of the way. Okay. Hamas emerged during the first Palestinian uprising as an outgrowth of the Muslim Brotherhood's Palestinian branch. The goal of Islam is to take over all of religion everywhere, and Hamas is an enforcer of that ideology. From 1987 until now has only given Hamas the time it needs to grow and become exalted in the world right in time for the witness given here at Sarid on the last great day of Sukkot 2023 concerning the appointed times of Yahuwah in the 7th month. Okay? Yahuwah has given this to us to share with you who are the beloved, so that you do not find yourself on the wrong side of everlasting and find yourself in the everlasting fire and not in the everlasting presence of Yahuwah and the Lamb. By rising up against Yisrael at this time, Hamas has come along for the times of the end to kickstart things, found here in the last chapter of the judgments of the covenant. Playing out in a religious manner, this judgment is for the whole world. So let's look at the last 7 months of their uprising according to the definitions concerning Hamas. From the start of the terror attack by Hamas on Yisrael, they have performed every word in those definitions by exploiting the limits of injustice, including, but not limited to, trespassing, breaking and entering, murdering, beating, raping, and abusing, kidnapping innocent people, men, women, and children. And that's just for starters. List goes on. And as far as being unethical, they have taken that to new heights as well. They committed all those crimes in the face of the whole world with the expectation of gaining support for a cause that can only be seen as terrorism. But they want that land that was never theirs in the first place. That's what they really want. They want to rename the land. And committing heinous crimes is the way to gain global support? But apparently so, according to the UN, led by the Three Stooges, Ireland, Spain, and Norway. Let me tell you something, any idiot remotely considering giving a terrorist organization a state anywhere is acting contrary to the promotion of the peaceful society the UN was created to oversee in the first place. Take my advice and forget about taking any land from Yisrael. Elohim is not going anywhere. All things must be fulfilled, including this judgment. Yahuwah gave us that land forever. If anything, when all is said and done, Jordan is going to have to give up some land on the other side of that river. That belongs to the tribes as well. And forget about East Jerusalem. When Yahuwah brings us back, we're going to show you how to get that done. Now let's consider the tactics of this carefully orchestrated plot in the world's attempt to rename Israel and get rid of Elohim in the eyes of the nation. Islam is not an intelligent choice for a religion, no matter how you slice it. And Hamas Palestinians are not smart enough to pull off this type of heinous crime and gain the type of global support they are receiving. The UN is involved in high levels of their governing body. Their own employees have been caught in wrongdoing, participating in the attacks, known as the UNRWA allegations. The employees were fired by the UN so that no further investigation can continue. How about that? Things were getting too close for them, so they turned the light out to hide the truth. So now they're just allegations because they can't continue the investigation. In the same way, they rebel against Elohim. That's why they want to rename Israel. Put out the light of spiritual truth so that Islam can have the light of their own religious truth. Land of Palestine. With Israel out of the way, Islam takes over the land. Give a little bit and they want the whole thing. In fact, because of the UNRWA debacle at the UN, it was found out that 11% of UN members, which is nearly 1,500 employees, are active members of Hamas, or Palestinian Islamic Jihad, which is the second most prominent militant group in Gaza. Okay? How little did we know? Let's consider the tactics of their wicked evil. They took the hostages with the intent of using them as leverage to manipulate a war in order to buy time, using the threat of death if there was retaliation. At the time, they carried out the war, putting their own people in harm's way to suffer casualties so that it would appear that Israel was killing innocent civilians. Some of their own people testified on news broadcasts that Hamas was taking the humanitarian aid and hiding in the tunnels to avoid capture, to buy time in an effort to delay the war and win by sympathy. That's why they won't release the hostages. They were banking on the world to eventually have sympathy for their people whom they put in harm's way for the cause. Hoping the world will forget about how they started this whole thing over time. They not only violated the ceasefire with the world watching, as they lied to everybody involved at the negotiating table, then they wanted to downplay the trespassing, kidnapping, raping, and murder involved in taking the hostages by wanting Israel to release convicted Palestinian criminals in exchange for some of the innocent hostages. This is a Russian tactic, calling it a hostage exchange. Innocent lives for convicted criminals. Trying to incite a religious war for the cause. They want to omit Yahuwah Elohim. It's like they did here in the survey line. From the land they think is theirs. When they migrated to the land after the original people of Israel was exiled before it even became the land of Palestine. And believe it or not, to promote in the promotion of their cause, it's working because it's garnered a lot of sympathy, just like they planned. The world's response is ceasefire. Let's think about a Palestinian state instead of release the hostages. No condemnation towards Hamas and how they started this war. They did evil, and they want to reward them with the state. That's crazy. world wants to stop the people suffering in the war zone because of all the time it's taken to get this thing done. Stop the suffering of those who support and promote the same teaching in Islam that gave birth to Hamas. They're dying for the cause. Men, women, and children, even little babies. Those people see their suffering the same way as those who strap bombs to themselves and blow up large crowds of people, or use planes to fly into buildings to kill mass numbers of people. They will die for the cause. Let them die. Anyone harboring the same beliefs as Hamas is not innocent. Hamas set up military command posts beneath the hospitals, beneath the mosques, schools, buildings of public usage, using the tunnels to move about like cowards. They want you to believe none of the civilians knew of this. Even though video has surfaced and exposed the plot using hospital surveillance footage. They got caught in the lie right on TV. Okay, these are diabolical conspiracy attacks. And they have people strategically placed in places of governments around the world, especially here in the United States among members of Congress, and most notably in places of higher learning, in an effort to boost political support against Israel's chief supporter, the United States, who will do well if they continue to support Israel. Otherwise, they too will fall. Trying to get rid of Elohim comes with consequences. Just go and read how many stories written in scripture where Yahuwah told Bnei Israel to kill men, women, children, and infants because of a spiritual war against Israel. This is no different. So they can stop showing all the baby suffering. In the eyes of Elohim, they have to go too. Trying to get rid of him, he's going to get rid of them. Wipe out their whole seed. However, the world sees it differently, largely because of ignorance. And in the case of the recent school uprisings, stupidity. College students have gotten caught up in a cause they know little about. Their mind is not finished developing because they're still in school learning, getting high, and being stupid. Why would you support a religion that at its core seeks to subject you to the same brutality they subject their own people to? Hamas dwells among their own people like the evil belief that all Muslims share and harbor in their heart because of what is written in the Quran. I don't care how nice they try to be. Behind closed doors, they're trying to get rid of you. That's why they wear those masks. So when they remove them, they can move about with the people. They seek to deceive the world by any means necessary for their cause. Yahuwah is telling you, don't do it. Don't follow after that stuff. Don't fall for it. They seek to deceive the world by any means necessary for their cause with the intention of, first of all, destroying whatever good standing Israel enjoys before the followers of Islam eventually hope to utterly destroy Israel and rename the whole land Palestine. They're all in on the plot. They're plotting it. Using these sinister methods, they have managed to capture the heart minds of millions around the world to support their cause, which is diabolically clever. No one even cares about the hostages anymore. They want to stop the war, stop the genocide, instead of free the hostages. Cease fire, instead of free the hostages. And now several of the remaining hostages have turned up dead. The word of Yahuwah does not lie, beloved. And this is the gleaning from those survey lines. So please do not be deceived. If Yahuwah wills, we will share more supporting evidence on this matter before we continue with the two witnesses in the book of Revelation. So watch out for yourselves and take heed to the warning. Amen. Shabbat shalom, mishpach. Lehitraot. See you later.